Joining us on the line right now is Congressman Mike Kelly, Republican from the 3rd District of Pennsylvania. Congressman, good to have you with us. How are you today?
Good, guys. Good to be on with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, this is the day that Kathleen Sebelius goes to Capitol Hill to answer questions, and there are a lot of questions about this Obamacare website and what went wrong. What do you want to ask Kathleen Sebelius?
Well, we had Ms. Tavener in yesterday at Ways and Means to talk about the site and the development of it. And I think that as far as asking Ms. Sebelius, you're going to get the same answers from her that you got from Ms. Tavener. And when you talk about numbers and say, could you be specific? And say, in mid-November, we'll have some numbers, which is pretty much the way this administration works. They couldn't give a straight answer if they had to on any subject, and it doesn't have to be anything really that complicated. But for them, everything is complicated, and especially when you have to get out and tell the truth. So, listen, Ms. Sebelius is going to go through quite a heavy line of questions today at Energy and Commerce. I think, but a lot of us are wondering, and especially those of us that came out of the private sector because we actually had to use our own money to do this stuff, how in the hell did you come up with a program? It took 3 years, and I don't know what the number is, really. The numbers bounced around. I've heard 400 million, 600 million. I've heard upwards, getting closer to $1 billion on getting this site up and running. And to say, after 3 years and all this money that you spent, all this taxpayer-funded money that you spent, now you tell us that you're going to get serious. You brought in some real experts to fix it. And I said, my God, are you serious? You can sit here in front of us and tell us that up until this time, it's been kind of trying to figure it out, but now you're going to bring in people that actually know how to do it to find out where the problems are. Guys, I got to tell you, this is an administration that for 5 years has stalled, tried to run out the clock, tried to divert our attention from one thing to another so they can slip something by us. And people say, well, you shouldn't talk that way. I said, well, of course I'm going to talk that way because it's truth. This whole thing has been a disaster from day one. And the trouble with these folks is they can never say, my bad. It's somebody else's fault.
Well, and to that end, Representative Mike Kelly, one of the reasons why we have you, you're a plain-spoken guy. You were a businessman before you decided to, for some crazy reason, come to Washington. And you mentioned Marilyn Tavener. She is the administrator of CMS. Right. That's the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Yesterday, using your business perspective, you questioned her. I want to play a little bit, and then I want you to expand on it a little bit because it is a remarkable exchange.
There's no bid process, right?
There was a bid process.
All right,
yeah.
so they competed against other people to get this bid?
Yes.
All right, is there a performance bond included in that?
Yes, I'm sure there is, but I'm sure there is, but I need to check on that.
Okay, well, I want to get an answer to that because, to my knowledge, there is absolutely no performance bond.
And I am not the contracting specialist.
No. Well, but you're in charge of it. You have got to have oversight. And I'm deeply disturbed that we are talking about a site that started off with an expectation of cost. It has gone way off the charts, and there's no concern about that. All right?
Congressman Kelly, can you expand on this a little bit from a business perspective? How is any of this performance acceptable?
Well, certainly. First of all, the reason I'm here is because this is the same government that took one of my dealerships away after almost 60 years of trying to build it, and these guys tried to take it away. Sent me a 39-page letter telling me that they knew how to run General Motors better than General Motors knew how to run General Motors, and one of those things was getting rid of a bunch of dealers.
Well, and now they know how to run Blue Cross better than Blue Cross.
Oh, my God. I mean, listen, and now Ms. Tavener, because of that series started off with, I just want to understand, who is in charge here? Who's in charge? Who was responsible for all this? She said, well, I was. Okay, now, having been involved in many bids over my lifetime, I'm an automobile dealer. You get a very specific request for a proposal that lists very specifically what it is that people are looking for, an agency, a company, an individual. What are they looking for? You have to follow those bid specs to the exact letter of what they're looking for.
Right.
Now, I know with services it's a little bit different, but there's an expectation of what it's going to cost, so you have a little bit of an idea. Now, when we bid something, there's also something called a performance bond.
Right.
In my case, it's usually 10% of what the total bid is. Now, people say, well, why would they want that? Because a responsible bidder can then be held accountable for coming up short on the bid, not fulfilling the total request.
That's 10%. That's a 10%. That's a 10% bond. So how far over are these guys?
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry. Say again.
That's a 10% bond to cover it. How far over has this bid gone?
Oh well, you know what? Because I don't think they had any idea what it was going to cost to begin with. Now, these are not people that are using their own money, so it's pretty easy to say, hey, you know what? I need a site. Just build it for me. Oh, okay. And
here, just let us know later how much it's going to cost.
Well, I've never seen anything like it. Nobody buys anything in the real world this way. But when I say that, nobody that's using their own money does this. Only a fool would. And apparently that's what we have running the executive office right now. This is hard for me to believe. And you look at Ms. Tavener's background, and I was told ahead of time, listen, when you question her, be very kind and considerate. She's a very nice lady. I said, you know what? Hey, you can forget that bull crap. I don't care if she's nice or not nice. She says she's running an agency that's provided, taxpayers have provided every single penny. The guys and gals that I represent back in Western Pennsylvania, and most people, hardworking American people, expect to get a positive return on their investment. We pay our taxes, we play by the rules, and we find out that we do it, but they don't.
Yeah,
they go way over the top.
It got pretty heated yesterday at point, but not with the witness. Sometimes with Democrats versus Republicans in that room.
Well, a lot of that is the cameras are rolling, so you got to get up, you got to jump up from your chair and yell and scream like you're some kind of a crazy person, and that's easy. You know what? It's easy to do, guys. We've all grown up, and I grew up on the playgrounds. You know what? When you're in a bad spot, what you do is pretend like you're mad at the other. It's the other guy's fault, the other girl's fault. So you try and point the finger at them and yell and scream at them when you're the culprit. If you can do that enough, you can get people to think, this other person must be the bad guy. Listen, this is this administration. They bully people, they yell at people, they divert attention away from whatever it is that's important, and then you come up later on. I liken it to this. Somebody wants to rob you at your house. So they go out in the front yard, they start a fire. You run out front to put the fire out. They come in the back door, take your TV, take your silverware, take all your china, take everything, and leave you nothing but the bills. And you say, gosh, when did this happen? When you weren't looking.
Yeah.
And we've seen this for 3 years on this. How about this site? 3 years. The estimates are over $600 million, and they still don't have it fixed yet because they call it a glitch. I don't call it a glitch. This is absolutely unacceptable, and you can't sit there in front of Congress and in front of the American people and tell them, well, you've got to understand, we just have to work the bugs out. If I did that with an automobile, that people would say, here, I'll tell you what, you keep the bugs, you keep the car, you give me back my money, I'm out of here, and man, you'll never see me again.
Well, can you hang on for a few more minutes?
Certainly.
Well,
because you're so full of good stuff today.
We have some more questions, so hang with us for just a minute. Our guest is Representative Mike Kelly, a Republican from the 3rd District of Pennsylvania. He was in the room yesterday as they were asking hard questions about why the Obamacare website was not functioning properly. My observation, tell me if you think this is right. There's an old saying when you're a lawyer, and it applies because many people on Capitol Hill are indeed lawyers, that if you're right on the facts, you pound the facts. If you're right, on the law, you pound the law. If you're not right on the facts or the law, you pound the table. And it seems to me that there's an awful lot of table pounding going on by Democrats right now to distract away from the fact that this is an unmitigated disaster.
Oh, absolutely. No, listen, I said earlier about growing up on the streets and in the playgrounds. Listen, that's exactly the way it works. I mean, I've watched this my whole life. I'm 65 now. And the reason I know a lot of this stuff is because I've had my nose bloodied quite a bit. It's my blood that's on the sidewalk when you're done. So, there's certain neighborhoods you just don't go into. But when you're in a bad neighborhood, you got to act bad. And when you've done the wrong thing, you've got to act like it's the other guy's fault. So, no, this is part of the game plan. This is the way it always goes with these folks. They just can't. I said earlier, listen, if you can't own up to it and say, listen, we made a mistake. These folks can't ever make a mistake. They can't say that. Listen, if it wasn't for President Bush being here 4 or 5 years ago, who else would they blame? I mean, everything always went back to what's Bush's fault. It's Bush's fault. Well, you know what? Now we're starting to look at it and say, well, wait a minute. Wasn't there somebody else in the White House here the last 5 years? Isn't there somebody else that actually ran the executive branch? Isn't there somebody that called all these shots and is responsible for all these things? And for a guy, and I'm talking now the President of the United States, if he's really getting his briefings out of the newspaper and off the radio and off the TV and finding out things aren't working, then something's really scary. I ran a dealership. It's only 110 people. But I got there before everybody in the morning and left after everybody else was done at night because it was mine and I wanted to make sure it was being run the right way. It's just the way I was raised. It's called responsibility. It's being held accountable for your lack of responsibility.
Congressman Mike.
More free passes than a 12-year-old at the county fair. I've never seen anything like it.
Congressman Mike Kelly is our guest, of course, a Republican from Pennsylvania. And listen, we like you because you're plain spoken and don't use all that political language. I got two quick questions for you. Here's the first one, and it should be a really easy yes or no answer. Remember this.
If you like your private health insurance plan, you can keep your plan. Period.
Was the president lying?
Period. Yes, period.
Oh, all right.
How else do you spin it?
That's a short answer. Well, they are trying to spin it, but all right. And here's the second question for you. You talk a lot about leadership and how the Republicans, they were elected, just like the president was reelected, Republicans were reelected in the House as well. You have a role in this government. What do you say to the people who say the best thing Republicans can do right now is put their hands in the air, stand back, do nothing, and let Obamacare fail and be a disaster for America? Is that what Republicans should do? Is that why you were elected?
No, we were elected. Listen, the House of Representatives are for oversight. If we don't have the stomach, if we don't have the backbone to stand up when something's wrong and say it's wrong, back where I'm from, if it waddles like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. This is a duck. And for us to sit back and say, well, you know what, if you just give it time, it's going to crash on its own. Really? Really? Is that the way it works? We never stand up. We never stand up for the people that send us to get up every morning. Some of them, the dad's working 2 jobs and mom's working a job to put a roof over the heads of their kids, put food on the table, clothes on their back, and try to prepare for their education. If I were to say to them, listen, just wait for a while and everything's going to get better, they'd say, you know what, here's what I'm going to wait for. The next election, to get your rear end the hell out of there.
Yeah. All right. So, but what about specifically the ideas? I mean, there's a couple of senators who want to pass bills that are going to delay or say, listen, if you do get knocked off your insurance plan, then that's not okay, and we want to ensure that you stay on your insurance plan. Should the Republicans be trying to pass any legislations to fix this right now, or should they just let it fail?
Well, I think I would rather do the other thing. I would rather take a lot to fix it, but to try to delay it for the individuals right now. It's about fairness for me. If it's not fair, and I mean fair across the board for everybody, not just big businesses, but the small people out there.
You want to delay. All right.
I want to delay. Right? We can't wipe it out because we're not the majority. Right. We have to sit and wait. The American people had a chance last November 6th to do something about it. They chose a guy who they said they liked better as opposed to a guy who they thought could run the shop the right way.
But you have to point out, they made that decision based on lies about Obamacare.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And they did do that. But by the same token, you have a responsibility as an American citizen to figure it out. And I'm getting tired of people saying, oh, I just didn't really realize. I said, you haven't watched this guy for the first 4 years? You should see it coming?
All right.
We got to hear about it. We liked him.
Thanks for staying with us.
We got to leave it there. But listen, thank you for hanging around. We greatly appreciate it. Representative Mike Kelly, 3rd District of Pennsylvania, always a